An elderly man gave his blanket to a child who was trembling in the cold at dusk. The next morning, he went to his wife's grave and found the girl reading something softly. The wind howled among the bare branches of the trees as William adjusted his old plaid blanket around his shoulders. His footsteps echoed in the deserted town square, setting an uneven rhythm on the cobblestones. 72 years had taught him that nightfall came earlier in winter, but tonight the darkness felt different, almost watchful. His wrinkled fingers clutched the fabric of the blanket, a gift from Mary on their last Christmas together. The familiar red and blue pattern, faded by time, still seemed to carry her scent. Or maybe his imagination was playing tricks on him once more. A sudden movement caught his attention. Under the flickering light of the farthest street lamp, a small figure huddled on a wooden bench. William slowed his steps, his eyes adjusting to the dimness. There was a little girl, no more than 6 years old, hugging her knees to her chest. Her thin dress, unsuitable for the biting cold, fluttered with every gust of wind. William's heart skipped a beat. Her dark hair, ruffled by the wind, framed a pale face whose cheeks were flushed pink from the chill. Her lips, slightly purple, trembled silently, but it was her eyes that froze him, big, dark, frightened, and yet oddly familiar, like the echo of something he couldn't name. His feet moved before his mind did. William approached slowly, doing his best not to alarm the child. She watched him with a mixture of fear and, was it hope? Her tiny body shivered with a new blast of wind. "It's a cold night to be out here," William murmured, his voice rusty from disuse. How long had it been since he had spoken to anyone other than Mary's portrait on his bedside table? The girl didn't respond, but her eyes tracked his every move. William noticed her small, cold, reddened fingers gripping something in her lap. A book, he realized, its worn pages quivering softly in the night breeze. Without hesitation, William pulled the blanket from his own shoulders. The freezing wind whipped through his old coat, but he hardly felt it. In slow, deliberate movements, he held out the blanket to the girl. "Here," he said gently. "Mary always said stories are better when we're warm." The girl's eyes went wide at the mention of that name. Her little hands let go of the book for just a moment, hesitating before reaching out for the blanket. The soft fabric draped over her shoulders like a hug, and for the first time, a flicker of something different crossed her gaze. Recognition. William stepped closer, countless questions crowding his mind. But before he could speak any of them aloud, the girl stood in one fluid motion. The plaid blanket wrapped around her like a cloak, and for a heartbeat, so quick that later William would wonder if it had been his imagination. Her lips curved into a small smile. Then she turned and ran, her light steps barely touching the ground. William remained still, watching as the small figure faded into the darkness, taking with her his blanket and that gaze which seemed to know him. The wind blew harder, carrying the distant rustle of turning pages. William stood there, feeling the cold seep through his clothes, yet his heart felt strangely warm. Those eyes, why did they hold the same spark he saw every morning in the photograph on his bedside table? Above him, the clouds shifted, revealing a crescent moon that bathed the empty square in silver light. At last, William moved, his steps slower, heavier. In his mind, the girl's eyes mingled with other memories, lazy afternoons filled with stories, the sound of children's laughter, and the scent of new books. As he walked home, William didn't realize that, for the first time in 3 years, his thoughts weren't solely on his losses. Somewhere in the night, a little girl wrapped herself in a plaid blanket, and the world felt a little less lonely. The clock on the wall showed 3:15 in the morning, its ticking echoing through the silent bedroom. For the 100th time, William turned over in the empty bed, the sheets tangled around his restless legs. The wind was still howling outside, but that wasn't what kept him awake. Those eyes, big, dark, frightened. And yet, he sat up, running his hands over his tired face. The dim light of the lamp lit the photograph on the bedside table, Mary smiling, holding a book on her lap, It was his favorite picture of her, taken during their last summer together. William reached out with trembling fingers, touching the glass of the frame. "What would you say now, Mary?" he whispered to the empty room. "Why did that little girl remind me so much of you?" Silence was his only answer. As it had been for the past 2 years, William stood, his bare feet meeting the cold floor. He walked to the window, looking at the night through the fogged glass. The square was empty now, the lonely bench under the street lamp, a pale ghost in the darkness. Where could she be? Was she warm enough under his blanket? His blanket, Mary's last gift to him. The memory hit like a wave, pulling him back 2 years into the past. It was a clear autumn day, the kind Mary would have loved for reading outdoors. But Mary was no longer there to enjoy the gentle sun or the golden leaves dancing in the breeze. The funeral had ended only a little while ago. The last guests said their subdued farewells, their faces blurred into an indistinct mass of sympathy and sorrow. William sat in his favorite armchair, the plaid blanket across his knees, unable to move. "Are you sure you don't want me to stay, Dad?" Sarah, his daughter, asked for the 3rd time. She lived on the other side of the country with her own family, and William knew she had to go back. "I'll be fine, sweetheart," he lied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You have your own children to take care of." Sarah hesitated, her eyes, so much like Mary's, filled with concern. "At least let me help you sort through her things." William shook his head. "No, that's something I need to do alone." After Sarah finally left, William dragged himself to Mary's study. The room still smelled of her, a blend of old books and the lavender perfume she always wore. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling, each shelf a different story they had shared. Then he noticed it. Something was amiss. Mary's red leather journal, the one she had carried everywhere the past few years, wasn't in its usual spot on the desk. William frowned, a shiver running down his spine. Mary never left that diary anywhere else. The following hours became a blur of opened drawers and rummaged cabinets. The diary had simply disappeared. William questioned everyone who had been in the house. The nurse who cared for Mary in her final days, a few close friends who'd come to the funeral, even the young flower delivery man. Nobody had seen the diary. "It must be here somewhere," he mumbled to himself that night, going through the desk drawers for the 10th time. Mary would never lose it. But the diary remained missing, taking with it all the secrets Mary had trusted to its pages in her final years. Years during which she'd spent more and more time away from home, always with that diary in hand, always wearing a secretive smile when she returned. William had never asked about its contents. He respected Mary's privacy, just as she had always respected his. But now, 2 years later, the questions consumed him. What had Mary written in those pages? Why had the diary vanished on the very day of her funeral? A distant siren broke into his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. William blinked, realizing he was still standing by the window. His reflection in the glass showed a tired face, marked not only by age, but by loneliness. He returned to bed, but sleep remained elusive. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the face of the little girl from the square. Something in her gaze unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. It was as if she knew him, as if she held a secret he should understand. The book in her lap, was it just his imagination, or was it the same kind of book Mary used to carry on her mysterious outings? Once more, William got up, this time going to his closet. In the back of the last drawer, he still kept the final letter Mary had written him, days before she passed. He had never managed to open it. The envelope was yellowed, his name written in Mary's delicate handwriting. His hands trembled as he held the envelope. Maybe now was the time. Maybe that mysterious girl was a sign. But before he could break the seal, a sound caught his attention. Outside, a dog barked at the night. William moved back to the window and, for a moment, thought he saw a small figure wrapped in a plaid blanket crossing the square. When he blinked, the figure was gone. The rest of the night stretched on, filled with a string of restless moments. William dozed for a few minutes at a time, only to wake with a start, his heart pounding. In his fleeting dreams, Mary smiled at him, holding the hand of a little girl whose face he couldn't quite see. When the first ray of sunlight finally broke through the window, William was already dressed. There was something he needed to do, somewhere he needed to go. As he had done every morning for the past 2 years, his feet would take him to the cemetery. But this time something would be different. This time he carried with him not just memories, but a new hope, fragile as the first light of dawn, yet just as persistent. But this time, something would be different. This time, he carried with him not just memories, but also a new hope, fragile like the first ray of morning sun, yet just as unrelenting. The morning fog still hung over the cemetery when William walked through the iron gates. The dew dampened the cuffs of his pants as he made his way along the familiar path among the headstones, his old coat barely warding off the lingering chill from the previous night. The absence of his plaid blanket weighed on his shoulders, but not as heavily as his memories. He knew every curve of this path, every tree, every stone bench. For the past 2 years, this had been his daily pilgrimage. 60 steps from the entrance to the large oak, then another 45 to the right. Mary's grave lay under the gentle shade of a small peach tree. She had always said she wanted to rest where she could hear birds singing in the springtime. But today, something was different. Several yards away, William heard it. A child's voice, soft and tentative, carried on the cool morning air, "Dear William." His heart stopped. Those words, were they from Mary's diary? Today was a special day. William approached silently. Sitting atop the plaid blanket spread out before Mary's headstone was the little girl from the previous night. Her small finger traced the lines of a familiar red-covered book, Mary's missing diary. "Her smile made me think of you." The girl paused, frowning at a particularly difficult word. Her lips moved silently, trying to form the sounds. The rising sun lit her focused face, showing faint freckles on her rosy cheeks. "Remember," William said softly. The girl looked up, her large dark eyes meeting his, but this time there was no fear in them, only recognition. "Remember," she repeated, smiling shyly. "Is that the word?" William nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a hesitant step toward her, worried she might flee again. "Aunt Mary always said that big words are like puzzles," the girl remarked, returning her eyes to the diary. "We have to piece them together bit by bit." William felt his legs weaken. Aunt Mary. Gently, he sat on a stone bench near Mary's grave. You knew Mary?" The girl nodded, closing the diary carefully. "Aunt Mary taught me to read. She said stories are magical, that they can take us anywhere." Her small fingers caressed the diary's cover. "She promised she would teach me all the words in the world." Tears blurred William's vision. Mary had never mentioned. How was that possible? "What's your name, child?" "Emma," she replied, adjusting the plaid blanket around her shoulders. "Aunt Mary gave me this name. She said it was the name of a girl in her favorite book, who also loved stories." William remembered, Emma by Jane Austen. Mary reread that book every year. "Emma," he repeated softly. "It's a lovely name." The girl smiled, a smile that lit her entire face. "You're the William from the diary," she declared with the certainty only a child could have. "Aunt Mary wrote a lot about you. She said you have the kindest heart in the world." William swallowed the lump in his throat. How did you get the diary, Emma?" Her smile faded slightly. "Aunt Mary gave it to me. On the last day." Her eyes filled with tears. "She said that once I learned to read properly, I'd need to give it to you, but..." She bit her lip. "I still can't read all the words. Some are too hard." William slowly moved from the bench to sit next to her on the blanket. Emma did not recoil. "You know," he said gently, "sometimes it's easier to read together with someone." Emma studied him for a moment, then extended the diary to him. Could you help me with the hard words?" William took the diary with trembling hands. The familiar smell of lavender still clung to its pages. "How about we start at the beginning?" he suggested. Emma scooted closer, her tiny body naturally nestling beside him. The plaid blanket enveloped them like a protective cocoon against the morning chill. "Dear William," he began, his voice unsteady, "today I met an angel." Mary's words flowed between them, filling the silence of the cemetery with a story William had never known existed. The story of a woman who discovered a newborn at a shelter. The story of secret visits, of first words, of smiles shared over children's books. Occasionally, Emma interrupted, proud to recognize a difficult word or curious about a particular passage. Her small hands gestured as she explained how Aunt Mary had taught her, using different voices for each character in the stories they read. The sun rose higher in the sky, warming the air around them. Birds began to sing in the peach tree, as if they too wanted to hear the story. "Aunt Mary said you would keep reading to me," Emma said suddenly, her small voice filled with hope. "She promised that you'd teach me all the words she didn't have time to teach." William looked at Mary's headstone, where fresh flowers, ones he hadn't left, rested against the stone. Then he looked at Emma, this little girl who carried in her eyes the same love of books Mary had possessed. "Yes," he answered, his voice steady for the first time that morning. "Yes, I will." Emma smiled, that radiant smile that seemed to illuminate the entire cemetery. Then she reached into her small backpack and took out another book, an old, well-used children's storybook. "Can we start now?" she asked. It was Aunt Mary's favorite. William opened the book, and together, under the morning sun and the birds' gentle melodies, they began a new story. With every word Emma recognized on her own, her smile grew. With every challenging word William helped her decipher, the emptiness in his heart grew a little smaller. There at Mary's grave, amid spelled-out words and shared smiles, something began to blossom. Something that felt like hope, something that felt like family. In the peach tree above them, a gentle breeze stirred the branches, causing a few petals to drift onto the plaid blanket. Emma laughed, catching a petal in midair. "Aunt Mary is happy," she declared with childlike certainty. "She always threw flowers at me when I got a hard word right." William looked up at the sky through the peach tree branches, and for the first time in 2 years, felt he could breathe again. Mary had not left entirely. She was there in the words of her diary, in Emma's smile, in the love of books she had planted in both of them. "Yes," he whispered, to both Emma and Mary. "She's very happy." William couldn't remember how he'd gotten back home after their meeting at the cemetery. His thoughts were lost among the pages of the red diary that now lay on his dining table, amidst cups of cold coffee left untouched, and crumbs from the breakfast he had barely eaten. The house had never seemed so silent. Or maybe it was simply the contrast with Emma's sweet voice that still echoed in his ears, stumbling over challenging words, laughing whenever she managed to figure them out. His eyes roamed the living room, pausing on details that had once seemed insignificant. The large mahogany cabinet Mary insisted on keeping there, even when people suggested it would look better in the study. "Some things need to be within reach," she used to say, with that secretive smile that now made so much sense. William stood up suddenly. The cabinet, Mary always kept it locked, but he had never questioned it. They respected each other's privacy. That was how their marriage worked. Now, though, his hands shook as he searched for the key. Mary kept it. Where? A memory flashed through his mind. The music box on the mantel, a gift for their 30th wedding anniversary. Inside it, a small brass key remained, just as he remembered. The lock gave way with a soft click. The first thing he noticed was the scent, lavender, but also something else, maybe baby powder. The shelves were meticulously organized, just like everything Mary did. Folders labeled by date, small boxes with ribbons, neatly sealed brown envelopes. His fingers brushed against a folder simply labeled Emma. Inside, he found receipts, dozens of them. Children's books, tiny clothes, educational toys. The earliest dated back 6 years, exactly when Mary began volunteering, as she described it. A large envelope caught his attention. "First Moments," Mary's delicate handwriting read on the front. William opened it carefully, as if handling something sacred. The first photo took his breath away. Mary was sitting on a simple rocking chair, radiating that special glow only she possessed. In her arms, a small bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. Newborn Emma, her tiny, red, wrinkled face turned toward Mary as though she already knew she had found her guardian angel. The date on the back, Emma, first day in the world. The following pictures told a story William had never known. Emma learning to sit, getting her first teeth, taking her first steps. Mary was in some of them, always radiant, always looking at Emma as though she were the most precious thing in the universe. Among the photos, he found small notes. Emma smiled today, a real smile, not just a baby reflex. My heart almost burst. First word, book. Not mommy or daddy, but book. Mary is sure she'll be an avid reader. She stood on her own today, clutching the bookshelf. She already knows exactly where her favorite books are. William sank into a nearby chair, the photographs scattered in his lap like puzzle pieces that were only now beginning to make sense. How had he not noticed? How had he missed Mary's subtle changes over the years? He returned to the cabinet with renewed purpose. A thick folder labeled Records revealed more secrets, shelter forms, visit reports, developmental assessments. Mary had documented everything methodically. One document in particular drew his attention, a psychological evaluation of Emma at age 3. The child displays an exceptionally strong bond with volunteer Mary. Despite the circumstances of her abandonment, she shows healthy emotional development, very likely due to the consistency of visits and the reading project started from her birth. Reading project. William went back to the cabinet, finding a thin folder titled Growing Words. Inside, he found a manifesto written by Mary. Every child deserves a story, not just stories to hear, but stories to live. Emma taught me that love can bloom among the pages of a book. That family is not just blood, but also ink and paper and shared words. Tears blurred his vision. Mary had built an entire parallel world, a world of love and stories, and he had never known. In the back of the cabinet, a worn shoebox caught his eye. Inside, he found drawings, dozens of them. Childlike scribbles that evolved over time. The first ones were just colorful doodles, but they gradually turned into recognizable figures. A gray-haired woman reading to a little girl, flowers, birds, books, and on nearly all of them, in the shaky writing of a child learning to spell, "For Aunt Mary with love." One envelope at the bottom of the box contained a single photo, more recent than the others. Mary sitting on a park bench, Emma on her lap, both focused on an open book. Mary's face already showed signs of the illness that would take her away, but her eyes still shone with a joy William hadn't seen in years. The date on the back was just 3 months before her death. William closed his eyes, letting the memories of the past few years reorder themselves. Mary's frequent outings, always with a bag full of books, the phone calls she took in private, the times he caught her smiling at nothing, as though harboring the most precious of secrets. And she truly was. One last envelope caught his attention, tucked behind all the folders. "For when you find out," Mary's handwriting declared. With trembling fingers, William opened it. "My love, if you're reading this, it means you've finally met our Emma. I know you must be wondering why I kept it a secret for so long. The truth is that some stories need the right moment to be told. Emma arrived at the shelter the same day we lost our last hope of having another child. Remember, the doctor had just confirmed our attempts at treatment had failed. I was devastated, wandering aimlessly around the city, when I heard a baby crying. It was as if the universe were showing me there are different ways to be a mother. Emma had no one, and I had so much love to give. I couldn't adopt her legally. They said we were too old. But I could be her fairy godmother, her storyteller, her Aunt Mary. I know I should have told you, but I was afraid. Afraid they'd stop my visits if they found out how much I cared. afraid you'd worry about my emotional involvement. And then, when I found out about the illness, well, some truths became even harder to share. But now you will meet her, William. You'll know her gentle heart, her love of books, her laugh that makes the world look brighter. And I know, my love, that you will love her just as much as I do. Take care of her for me. Teach her all the words I couldn't. Tell her the stories I never got to share. And remember, love, like the best stories, always finds a way to go on. With all my heart, Mary. William let the letter fall into his lap, his body shaken by silent sobs. Through the tears, he looked at the photos scattered around him, fragments of a love story he was only now beginning to learn. On the windowsill, a bird perched, its soft song breaking the silence of the house. William thought of Emma, sitting at Mary's grave that morning, so small and brave, guarding the diary until she was ready to share it. Some stories need the right moment to be told, and this one, he realized, was just beginning. The Little Angels shelter building had seen better days. The yellow paint was peeling off the walls, and the garden, vibrant with flowers in Mary's photos, was now overgrown with weeds. A faded sign read, "Temporarily closed for renovations." William sat in his car for a few minutes, watching. The second-floor windows, where the nursery used to be according to Mary's records, were boarded up. A lone swing squeaked in the abandoned playground, swaying in the morning breeze. It took some courage to leave the car and climb the worn steps to the entrance. Each footstep echoed in the silence, as though the building itself protested the intrusion into its memories. An elderly lady was sweeping the porch of the neighboring house. Seeing William, she leaned on her broom, studying him with sharp eyes. "If you're looking for the shelter, it shut down 4 months ago," she informed him, her voice surprisingly strong for someone so frail. William turned. "I'm actually trying to find out about someone who volunteered here." "A volunteer?" "Mary," the lady finished, a gentle smile lighting her lined face. "Mary, the storyteller." William's heart skipped a beat. "You knew her?" "Rose Thompson," she introduced herself, setting her broom aside. "I was a caregiver here for 30 years until it closed. Mary, she was different. Special. Different from all the other volunteers who came by." William approached the small gate separating the properties. Could you tell me more?" Rose opened the gate, motioning toward a small seating area in her garden. "Come, let's sit. This story deserves to be told calmly." Rose's garden was an oasis of color amidst the surrounding decay. Climbing roses covered a pergola, shading the worn wicker chairs. "It was on a stormy night," Rose began, pouring fresh water into old glass cups. "Mary arrived soaked, carrying a newborn. Emma had been left at the shelter's door, with only a note asking us to take care of her." William gripped his cup tightly. "Was Mary there by coincidence?" Rose smiled, a knowing smile. "Mary used to say there are no coincidences, just stories waiting to be written. She'd missed her bus that night and decided to wait out the rain on our porch. That's when she heard Emma's faint cries." Memories seemed alive in Rose's eyes as she went on. "I never saw anything like it. Mary picked up that baby in her arms, and it was as if they were made for each other. Emma stopped crying the instant Mary started singing to her. And after that, she came regularly." "Every day," Rose confirmed. "At first, she said it was just to help, but we all saw how her eyes shone when Emma smiled, how she decorated the nursery with children's book characters, how she recorded every small milestone in her red diary." William swallowed. "The diary? Oh, yes. Mary never went anywhere without it. She documented everything. Emma's first smile, her first word, every little step forward." Rose paused, her eyes distant. "But it was her plans that really touched me." "Plans?" Rose stood and disappeared briefly into the house, returning with a worn cardboard box. "I saved some items when the shelter closed. I couldn't let them be thrown away." From inside the box, she pulled out a spiral notebook. "Mary gave me this the week she found out about her illness. She said I would need to understand later." William opened the notebook with shaking hands. It contained a detailed plan for Emma's adoption. Mary had thought of everything, remodeling the guest room, the nearest school, even a list of recommended pediatricians. She planned to make the official request when Emma turned 2, Rose explained gently. The chances would be better by then. Emma was settled. The bond was obvious to anyone who saw them together. But then came the diagnosis. Rose's voice faltered. Mary showed up one afternoon, paler than usual. We sat in this same spot, and she cried like never before. Not for her own sake, you see, but for Emma. For all the moments she wouldn't be there to share. A photo fell from the notebook. Mary was in the shelter's modest library. Emma on her lap, both asleep with a book open. The peacefulness in their faces was palpable. That's when Mary started the project, Rose continued. If she couldn't be Emma's mother, she would be her fairy godmother. She created an entire reading program, not just for Emma but for all the children. She turned our little library into a magical place. Rose rummaged in the box again, pulling out a photo album. The pages showed the transformation. Walls painted with fairy tale scenes, shelves at child's level, colorful cushions scattered on the floor. Mary believed stories have power, Rose said softly. The power to heal, transform, connect. Even when the illness weakened her, she kept coming. Sometimes she could barely hold the book, but her eyes, oh, how they sparkled when Emma recognized letters for the first time. William found his voice choked by emotion. Why did she never tell me? Rose covered his hand with hers, her knobby fingers surprisingly strong. Mary told me once that some stories are like gardens. They need time to blossom. She knew one day you and Emma would find each other when the time was right. The distant sound of children playing reached them. It must have been recess at the nearby school. William pictured Mary sitting there, in that same garden, dreaming of a future she would not see. After she passed, Rose went on, Emma changed. She stopped talking for weeks. She only calmed down when someone read to her. Always the same books Mary used to read. She hesitated. That's why I gave her the diary. William looked at her in surprise. Mary asked me to give it to you, but when I saw Emma so lost, I knew she needed it more. She needed something to hold on to, something to keep Mary alive in her heart until... She smiled. Until you were ready to continue the story. William glanced at the abandoned shelter, its empty windows that once witnessed so much love. And now, where is Emma staying? Rose's smile disappeared. A temporary foster home. It's not the best place, but with the shelter closing, we had no choice. William stood abruptly. I need to go. Rose nodded in understanding, handing him the box of Mary's things. She knew, you know? She knew you would come. William has the biggest heart in the world, she always said. He just needs to discover how much space he still has in it. At the gate, William turned one last time. Thank you, Rose, for keeping these memories, for caring for them. Just promise me one thing, Rose called after him. Continue the story. Mary started something beautiful here. Don't let it end. William clutched the box to his chest, feeling the weight of memories, of interrupted dreams, and of promises yet to be fulfilled. I promise, he whispered, to Rose and to Mary, and to little Emma, who waited somewhere for someone to continue her story. The box Rose had given him rested on the kitchen table, its worn edges silently recounting years of careful storage. William spent the entire afternoon poring over its contents, each item revealing new secrets about Mary's hidden life. Near the bottom, wrapped in a faded piece of blue cloth, he found something that made his heart skip a beat. A children's book, its cover worn from constant use, the pages slightly warped as though they'd been soaked and dried many times. The title, in worn gold letters, read, The Night Gardener. William ran a trembling hand across the cover. He remembered Mary mentioning the book once, saying it was about a man who planted flowers at night to make people smile in the morning. Back then, he hadn't thought much of it. Opening the book, an envelope fell into his lap. Mary's handwriting flowed across the front. Moments with Emma. Inside were pages and pages of notes, all dated, all written with that special care Mary gave to the things she loved. March 12th, first time reading The Night Gardener to Emma. Only 3 weeks old, and she's already paying so much attention to the pictures. Her little eyes follow the bright colors, and I swear she smiled when I did the gardener's voice. March 20th, Emma recognized the book today. Her little arms flailed as soon as she saw the cover. Rose says it's too soon for real recognition, but I know what I saw. William turned the page of the book, noticing more notes in the margins. Mary had turned it into a diary, recording each of Emma's reactions, every special moment they shared over those pages. May's 2nd, first real laugh during the scene with the sunflower garden, making buzzing bee noises, was definitely the right choice. On the next page, June 15th, Emma tried to grab the flowers off the page today. Her tiny fingers looked so small against the paper. I had to fix the page later, but I don't mind. Every mark is precious. Between the pages, William found small treasures. A tiny blue ink handprint of Emma, strands of hair taped carefully, Polaroid snapshots showing different expressions of wonder on the baby's face. In the middle of the book, the notes changed tone. September 1st, Emma said her first word today, flower. Not mommy or daddy like other kids, but flower. My heart can barely contain itself. Rose jokes that we've raised a little gardener. William had to pause, his hands trembling too much to hold the book. Mary had documented every little miracle, every precious moment, and he, living in the same city, had never known. He kept flipping the pages, finding more entries. January 3rd, Emma turned 1 today. We had a small celebration in the shelter's library. I decorated everything with paper flowers, like in the book. She clapped the entire time while I read the story for the 100th time. Rose says she's never seen a baby so in love with a book. The following pages contained drawings, first random scribbles, then more defined shapes, flowers, stars, a man with a watering can. Emma's artistic development was all there, preserved among the pages of her favorite book. Then, near the end of the book, William found a set of carefully folded documents. Adoption forms, partially filled out, psychological evaluations, letters of recommendation, even a plan for refurbishing the guest room into a child's room. The date on the forms squeezed his heart, just 2 weeks before Mary's diagnosis. One last letter on hospital stationery completed the story. Dear Rose, the doctor confirmed today what I already suspected. I don't have enough time left to continue with the adoption process. My heart is shattered, but I mustn't be selfish. Emma deserves a family who can stay with her for many, many years. Please keep this book for her. One day, when she's older, give it to her. Within its pages is all my love, all the stories we shared, all the dreams I had for us. And Rose, take care of my little garden until the flowers can bloom again. With love, Mary. William gently closed the book, noticing his tears had left new rings on its already time-worn pages. Beside him, Mary's portrait seemed to smile differently now. Not a smile of hidden secrets, but a smile of stories waiting to be continued. He picked up the phone, his hands still trembling slightly. Rose, I need a favor. You said Emma's in a foster home. I need the address. On the other end, Rose paused meaningfully. Are you sure you're ready, William? He looked at the book in his lap, at all the stories it held, at all the love recorded in its pages. Mary was planting a garden, he answered quietly. It's time someone kept tending the flowers. As he jotted down the address, William noticed the sun was setting, painting the sky with the same colors as the flowers illustrated in the book. Somewhere in the city, a little girl was waiting for another story, and this time he would be the gardener. William stared at the faded piece of paper in his hands, an improvised birth record Rose had kept. The date, the time, and a few hastily written observations filled the page. The space for the mother's name remained blank, a painful gap in Emma's story. Rose poured another cup of tea, her wrinkled hands trembling slightly. They had met once more in her garden, but the air was heavier now with the truths that needed telling. "It was a rainy night," Rose began, her voice hushed as if sharing a sacred secret. "A young woman showed up at the shelter, drenched and in labor. She wouldn't give her name, wouldn't accept medical help. She only wanted a place to have her baby." William closed his eyes, picturing the scene. The shelter in darkness, rain hammering the windows, a life about to begin in the loneliest way possible. "Emma was born at 3:47 a.m., Rose continued. "A small baby, but with strong lungs. The mother, she wouldn't even hold the child. She asked only for paper and pen, wrote a note, and left before dawn." Rose stood up and walked to an antique dresser in the corner of the porch. From a drawer, she pulled out a worn envelope preserved in a plastic sleeve. Inside, a crumpled piece of paper bore only a few words. "Her name is Emma. I can't keep her. Please find someone who can love her the way I can't." "Mary arrived that same morning," Rose went on, a small smile softening her features. "It was her usual volunteer time. When she saw Emma in the nursery, it was magic. The baby had been fussy, crying for hours. But the moment Mary picked her up, she calmed down," William completed softly. Rose nodded. Mary had that gift. Not just with Emma, but with her. It was different. Special. Like their souls recognized each other. William looked at more documents Rose had kept. Initial medical reports, developmental records, weekly photographs documenting the baby's growth. In every photo after that first morning, Mary was present, holding Emma, feeding her, reading to her. "Mary came every day?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not a single absence," Rose confirmed. "She arrived at 9 in the morning, always with a new book under her arm. Sometimes she stayed until nightfall. On weekends, she'd spend the whole day. Emma was the first to have her own little rocking chair in the nursery. Mary insisted it was important for setting a reading routine." William found a photo of that chair, small, painted light blue, with floral cushions. In one of the pictures, Mary was rocking Emma, both of them asleep, a book open in her lap. "Did anyone try to find Emma's biological mother?" Rose's face darkened. "Mary tried at first. She even hired a private investigator. But there was nothing, no record, no clue. It was as if Emma's mother had vanished in the rain that night." William thought of Emma, so young at 6 years old, already carrying the weight of abandonment. Does she know about her mother? Mary was always honest with her, as honest as a child could understand. She told her sometimes people can't stay with those they love, even if they want to. She turned it into a story, like she always did, about a little bird that had to leave its chick in a safer nest. Tears blurred William's sight. Mary, his Mary, weaving tales to transform pain into hope, abandonment into possibility. Emma never had another visitor, anyone interested in adopting her. "A few couples came," Rose admitted. "But Emma, she only opened up with Mary. To everyone else, she was like a closed flower." The social workers ended up labeling her a child with socialization difficulties. If only they had seen her with Mary, they'd have understood. Understood what? That Emma didn't need fixing. She just needed the right kind of love. The kind Mary gave, patient, steady, unconditional. Mary didn't try to force her to be different. She accepted her silences, respected her timing, loved each small progress. William picked up another photo. Emma, about 4 years old, dressed like a little gardener, watering a pot of daisies. Her smile was radiant, pure, complete. Mary was more than a volunteer, Rose concluded softly. She was the mother Emma chose, and Emma was the daughter fate gave Mary, even if for too brief a time. The sun was setting, painting Rose's garden in golden hues. William carefully put away the documents, each paper a piece of Emma's puzzle. "You know," Rose said as she walked him to the gate, "Mary always said true stories don't end. They just change narrators." William paused, looking at the folder in his hands. "And you think that I should..." "Mary chose you, William, not just as a husband, but as the keeper of her most precious story. Rose smiled, her eyes shining with wisdom. "Now it's your turn to choose." William nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and, at the same time, a growing certainty in his heart. Emma may have been born on a stormy night, abandoned by her biological mother, but Mary's love had taken root. Now it was his job to ensure those roots continued to flourish. The public library was nearly empty at that hour of the morning. William walked among the silent shelves, his heart pounding harder with each step. Rose had told him Emma often came here whenever she could sneak out of the foster home. "It's the only place she feels safe," she had said. The children's section was on the second floor, a colorful space with cushions scattered on the floor and mural characters on the walls. A handmade sign read "Storytime Corner" in bright letters. That's when he saw her. Emma was huddled in a distant corner, partly hidden by a low bookshelf. The plaid blanket, his blanket, was wrapped around her small shoulders like a protective cocoon. On her lap lay Mary's red diary, and her lips moved silently as she struggled to read. The S-U-N. William approached slowly, not wanting to scare her. Emma looked up when she heard his footsteps, but this time she didn't run away. Instead, she smiled shyly. "It's a hard word," she said, pointing to the page. "Aunt Mary always said some words are like puzzles." William sat on the carpet beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "Want some help?" Emma hesitated a moment, then slid the diary toward him. "This one." Her little finger pointed at a word in the middle of the page. "When the sun rose," William read gently, "the garden was covered in dew." "Dew?" Emma repeated carefully. "What's dew?" "They're tiny drops of water that appear on flowers early in the morning," William explained, "like little shining pearls." Emma's eyes lit up with understanding. "Like in the gardener's book. Aunt Mary showed me once, early in the morning at the shelter's garden." William noticed the other books scattered around her, titles he'd found in Mary's cabinet, each marked with colorful sticky notes. "Do you come here often?" Emma's smile faded a bit. "Whenever I can. Miss Thompson, Rose, helps me sometimes. She brings me when Mrs. Helen isn't watching." "Mrs. Helen?" Emma pulled the blanket tighter around her. "The new place. She doesn't really like books. Says they make a mess, take up space." William felt his heart clench. "What's it like? At the new place?" Emma's silence was more telling than any answer. Her small fingers fidgeted nervously with the edge of the blanket. "There are a lot of kids," she finally whispered. "Not much space. I sleep in a bunk bed with 3 other girls. They laughed at my gardener book." William noticed details he hadn't caught before. The small tear in her dress sleeve, clumsily mended, her worn shoes with mismatched laces, her hair messy, whereas Mary always kept it neat in the photos. "Last week," Emma went on, her voice trembling slightly, "Mrs. Helen did some cleaning. She said there was too much old stuff taking up space. She took some of my books." Tears began to form in her eyes. "I managed to hide the gardener book and Aunt Mary's diary under the mattress. But the others," she sniffled. "Aunt Mary had written special things in them, things just for me." A surge of protectiveness overwhelmed William, taking his breath away. How could anyone be so insensitive to a child who had already lost so much? "Emma," he said gently, "would you like to see something special?" She nodded, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her dress. William took an envelope from his briefcase, the one Rose had given him, filled with photos of Emma as a baby with Mary. Emma's eyes widened at the first picture. "That's Aunt Mary," she exclaimed, her face lighting up. "And is that baby me?" "Yes," William smiled. "Mary saved all these photos. Every special moment." Emma looked through them carefully, her fingers touching Mary's face in each one. "She's smiling in all of them," she observed in wonder. "Because you made her very happy," William responded simply. Emma gazed at him for a long moment. "You made her happy too," she finally said. "She wrote that here." She flipped through the diary until she found a specific page. "Look, I can read this part. William has the kindest heart in the world. Now it was William's turn to swallow back tears. A distant bell rang, and Emma jumped. "It's noon," she said, hastily gathering her books into a worn-out backpack. "I have to go back. Mrs. Helen gets mad if we're late for lunch. Could I come see you again tomorrow?" William asked, helping her pack the books. Emma paused, looking at him with a mixture of hope and fear. "You promise?" "I promise," William answered firmly. "Same time?" She nodded, a small smile returning to her face. Before she left, she hesitated for a second, then did something that startled William. She gave him a quick, timid hug. "See you tomorrow," she whispered, then ran toward the stairs, the plaid blanket trailing behind her like a cape. William remained seated on the colorful library carpet, surrounded by the scent of books and memories. In his hands, he still held a photo of Mary with a newborn Emma, and now he could see clearly what Rose had meant. Mary wasn't just giving love to Emma. Emma was filling a void no one else could. Slowly, he stood, his decision already made. It was time for a visit to social services. Emma needed a new chapter in her story, and he was determined to help her write it. As promised, William was at the library the next day. He arrived early, bringing a small basket with hot chocolate in a thermos and a few homemade cookies, Mary's recipe, which she used to bake on special days. Emma was already waiting in her usual corner, but something was different today. Beside her lay an old shoebox decorated with flower and star stickers. "Good morning," she whispered, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the basket. "They smell just like Aunt Mary's cookies." William smiled, pouring hot chocolate into 2 paper cups. "Same recipe. She always said stories are better with a special snack." Emma took a cookie, holding it reverently before biting into it. She closed her eyes for a moment. "It tastes exactly the same," she murmured. "Just the same." After a few moments enjoying the cookies in a comfortable silence, Emma pulled the box closer. "I want to show you something," she said in a small but determined voice. "They're Aunt Mary's letters." William set his cup aside, feeling the weight of the moment. Emma opened the box carefully, as though handling a precious treasure, and it was. The first letter she removed was decorated with small, hand-drawn flowers along the edges. "This was the first one," Emma explained, "for when I didn't know how to read yet." Inside, Mary had created a simple comic, a little girl in a garden, meeting a fairy godmother who carried books. The dialogue was written in big, clear letters. "See?" Emma pointed to the drawings. "The fairy godmother is her, and that's me." She made a different story for each letter. One by one, Emma showed him the letters. Some had only pictures, others mixed drawings with simple words. The dates progressed, and so did the complexity of the stories, matching Emma's reading progress. "This one is from when I learned my first word," Emma said, taking out an especially colorful letter. On it, Mary had drawn fireworks around the word flower in big, festive letters. William noticed how Mary adapted her writing, starting with short, simple sentences, moving toward little paragraphs. Each letter was carefully tailored to Emma's reading level at that time. "And here," Emma went on, her voice growing softer, "she starts writing letters for the future." These were different, sealed letters, each with a date or occasion written on the front. For when you learn to read on your own, for your first day of school, for when you feel lonely. "Aunt Mary said they were special gifts," Emma explained, "that I could only open each one at the right moment." Her small hands trembled slightly as she pulled out the final letter in the box. The envelope was worn, as if it had been held and stroked many times, yet remained sealed. This is the only one I can't open," Emma whispered. "Aunt Mary gave it to me on the last day. She said it was the most important one of all, but that I could only read it when I was ready." William recognized Mary's handwriting on the envelope. "For when you find your true home." "Sometimes," Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "at night when I'm really scared or sad at Mrs. Helen's, I hold this letter close to my heart. It's like I can feel Aunt Mary hugging me." William felt tears welling in his eyes. Gently, he took the letter Emma offered. The envelope had a faint stain in one corner. Old tears, perhaps Mary's, perhaps Emma's. Would you like me to read it to you?" he offered softly. Emma shook her head. "Not yet. Aunt Mary will tell me when it's the right time. She always said some stories need the perfect moment to be told." William handed back the letter carefully, watching how Emma tucked it away with infinite tenderness in the box. "You know," she said, picking up another cookie, "Aunt Mary talked about you a lot in the letters. She said you were like the gardener in the story, planting joy in the world without expecting anything back." "Did she now?" William asked, his voice thick. Emma nodded, rummaging through her pile of letters until she found a specific one. In it, Mary had drawn a man watering a garden of stars. "See?" she wrote here, "like William, who makes the world shine just by being in it." Emma smiled. "I think she was right. You shine like she did." William couldn't respond, his heart overflowing with love for Mary, for this little girl who held so much love in a box of letters, for the life they could build together. Emma kept showing him the letters, each revealing a new aspect of Mary's love. There were instructions for games, suggestions for books to read, small life lessons woven into fairy tales. Time flew by, as it always does in precious moments. When the noon bell chimed, Emma put her letters away with the same care she'd taken them out. "William," she called, before leaving, Do you think I'll ever have a place where I can hang all these letters on the wall? Like Aunt Mary used to do with my drawings." William felt his heart contract and, at the same time, fill with resolve. "Yes, Emma," he promised. "Very soon." After she left, William lingered in the library, surrounded by the echo of so much love captured in paper and ink. He pulled from his pocket the social worker's card he'd been given the previous day. It was time to turn promises into reality. In the box Emma had left behind, the final letter waited patiently for the right moment to reveal its secrets. Soon, very soon, it would be time to open it. The sky was exceptionally blue that Sunday morning. William held Emma's small hand as they walked through the cemetery. She carried a bouquet of daisies, her favorite and Mary's, and the box with the still unopened last letter. The peach tree shading Mary's grave was starting to blossom, a few pale pink petals swirling in the gentle morning air. Emma let go of William's hand and ran forward, stopping at the headstone with a familiarity that broke his heart. "Hi, Aunt Mary," she said softly, arranging the daisies in a little vase. "I brought William today." And she hesitated, looking down at the box in her hands. "I think it's time." William approached slowly, giving Emma space for this moment. She sat on the grass, smoothing out her new dress, a gift from him the previous week, light blue with small embroidered flowers. "William," she called, her voice small but determined, Could you read it to me?" He sat beside her, accepting the envelope she handed him with trembling fingers. The paper was slightly yellowed, but the seal was still intact. On the front, in Mary's graceful handwriting, were the words, "For when you find your true home." "Are you sure?" he asked gently. Emma nodded, pulling the plaid blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Aunt Mary is here with us. I can feel it. It's the right time." With utmost care, William broke the seal. Inside were several pages, and with them a small golden key. "My dear Emma," he began to read, his voice choked with emotion. "If you're reading this letter, it means you've found your way home. Not a home of bricks and shingles, but a home that lives in the heart of those who truly love you. There is so much I need to tell you, little one. So many dreams I built for the two of us, so many plans that time didn't allow me to fulfill. But first, I need you to know one thing. You were the greatest gift life ever gave me. Remember the story of the night gardener in your favorite book? How he planted flowers in the dark so people would wake up to a more beautiful world. You were my most precious flower, Emma. A flower I discovered on a dark night that turned my entire garden into a brighter place. I had so many plans. I was going to officially adopt you when you turned 2. I'd even picked out the colors for your room, light blue, like the sky on spring days. The key that comes with this letter. It opens the trunk in the attic, where I kept all your future birthday presents, all the books I set aside for us to read together, all the dreams I saved for you. But life, my little one, sometimes writes different stories than the ones we plan. When I learned of my illness, my biggest fear wasn't leaving, it was leaving you alone again. That's when I realized I could never be your final page, just an important chapter in your story. That's where William comes in. Emma, my love, if you're reading this, it's because William finally found you. Or maybe you found him. See how the universe works in mysterious ways. He is the gardener who will keep tending our most precious flower. William has the kindest heart I've ever known. He may seem a bit lost sometimes, a bit quiet, but his love is like that nighttime garden, silent, steady, transformative. He will teach you the hard words, make you cookies on rainy days, keep your secrets as he kept mine. In the trunk, this key opens. Besides your presents, you'll find all the documents needed for William to adopt you legally. Yes, my little one, I planned it all. Because sometimes, the best stories are those we write with hope, even when we don't know the ending. Emma, you taught me that love doesn't need blood to be real. You showed me that family is something we build, word by word, story by story, hug by hug. Now it's your turn to teach William. Be patient with him, as you were with me. Show him how to smile at the stars, how to find magic in the pages of a book, how to make the world kinder just by being in it. And always remember, you were never abandoned. You were only planted in different gardens until you found the one where you could truly blossom. William, my love, I know you're reading this too. Take care of our girl. She will light up your days as she lit up mine. And together, you'll write the next chapters of this story I began but couldn't finish. With all the love in the universe, Mary. William stopped reading, tears running freely down his face. Beside him, Emma was sobbing silently, clutching the plaid blanket to her chest. The key, she whispered through her tears. William held up the small golden key, warm from being in his hand during the reading. Emma moved closer, seeking comfort in his presence. William, she asked, her voice trembling, will you be my garden? He pulled her into a tight hug, tears blending together. Yes, my little one. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Above them, the peach tree released a gentle shower of pink petals, as if Mary herself were blessing the moment. A new promise was born there, under the bright Sunday sky, not to replace the old one, but to continue it. And somewhere, in an attic filled with treasured dreams, a trunk waited to be opened. The golden key seemed too small to hold so many secrets. William and Emma stood before the attic door, their shadows lengthened by the late afternoon sunlight coming in through the hallway window. It was Emma's first visit to the house, her future home, if all went well with the adoption process. Ready? William asked softly. Emma squeezed his hand and nodded. The key turned in the lock with a gentle click, and the door opened, revealing the world Mary had kept for them. The attic was meticulously organized, as everything Mary handled had been. There were shelves filled with new children's books, boxes labeled by age and occasion, and in the center, a large oak trunk carved with flower designs. But what first caught their attention was a large model displayed on a table, a detailed architectural project with tiny model trees, a playground, and a main building painted in bright colors. Story Garden. Emma read the little sign by the model's entrance. William moved closer, noticing a folder beside the model. Inside were professional building plans, budgets, and a manifesto Mary had written. The Story Garden project is born from the belief that every child deserves a place to flourish. Emma taught me that love and stories can transform lives. Now, it's time to expand that garden. Our mission is to create a space where children in foster care can find stability, love, and education through books. A place where they can be children first, before they become statistics. William kept reading the documents, discovering Mary had done more than dream. She'd taken action. He found records of a substantial bank account, built up by careful investments over the years, and the sale of a property she'd inherited from her parents. "Look," Emma exclaimed, pointing to a series of photographs on the wall. They showed the old shelter, but of an area William didn't recognize. A large room turned into a children's library, with colorful cushions, low shelves, and hand-painted murals. "This was our first reading nook," came a familiar voice from the door. It was Rose, whom William had invited to share in this moment. "Mary started small," Rose continued, entering the attic. "At first it was just her reading to Emma, then other kids began to show up for story time. Soon we had a regular group." Rose approached the model, touching it fondly. This was her bigger dream, not just a daycare center, but a place where foster kids could find stability during the day, even if they were moved between shelters or foster homes. William discovered more documents, records of other children Mary had helped over the years, each with a folder containing progress reports, specific needs, and future dreams. "Over here," Rose pointed to a filing cabinet in the corner, "are all the stories Mary wrote for the kids. She made them personal for each child, as she did for Emma. But Emma was the first, the one who showed Mary that love can have many forms." Emma had opened the trunk and was marveling at its contents. Carefully wrapped presents, each labeled with a date or special occasion, brand new books still waiting to be read. Even a photo album documenting the evolution of the shelter library. "Mary knew she couldn't be here to see this dream realized," Rose explained, picking up another bundle of documents. "So she prepared everything. The money is in a dedicated fund. The building plans are approved. There's even a list of professionals willing to help: teachers, librarians, psychologists." William found a letter addressed to him, separate from the other documents. "Dear William, if you're reading this, you have found not only Emma but also my other great dream. The Story Garden is more than a project. It's a legacy of love that began with a tiny girl on a rainy night. You're probably wondering why I never told you about it. The truth is that some seeds need time to sprout. I had to be sure everything was ready, that the dream could survive without me. The land is already purchased, the green area near the park, remember? You always said it would be a perfect spot for children. The resources are secured, the plans are approved. All that was missing was the right person to make this garden flourish. Emma will show you the way. She knows better than anyone how stories can save lives. Use my legacy to build not just a home for her, but a place where other children can find hope. With love, Mary." "Were there more children than me?" Emma asked, holding a photo album. Rose smiled. "Oh yes, Mary had a special program. Every week, children from different foster homes came for story time. She kept records of each one, wrote personalized letters, made sure they had access to books." William found detailed reports, statistics showing how the children in Mary's program had better school performance, greater emotional stability, and higher chances of successful adoption. "The most incredible part," Rose continued, "is that she created a network. Volunteers still go to shelters to read, regular book donations keep coming, and there's a group of retired teachers giving free tutoring." Emma discovered something at the bottom of the trunk, a box with her name on it. Inside lay a child-sized white coat with a name badge. "Emma, special helper at the Story Garden." "Mary knew," Rose said softly as Emma tried on the coat. "She knew one day you would continue her work." William watched Emma spinning in her new coat, her face lit by the same glow Mary had in her photos. Suddenly, it all made sense. Mary's love for Emma wasn't just about giving one child a home. It was about creating a place where many children could find hope. "There's one more thing," Rose said, taking a final envelope from her bag. "Mary asked me to keep this until the right moment." It was a drawing Emma had made when she was very young, colorful scribbles vaguely forming two figures holding hands in a garden of flowers. On the back, Mary had written, "Emma, age 3, her first drawing of the Story Garden." She said, "It's where all the kids can have an Aunt Mary." William looked at Emma, now examining the model with intensity. her small finger tracing paths between the miniature trees. "Can we make this happen?" she asked, her voice brimming with hope. "Can we make Aunt Mary's garden grow?" William knelt beside her, adjusting the badge on her new coat. "Yes, little one, we're going to make this garden flourish." "Together," Rose smiled, tears in her eyes. "Mary always said stories have power, the power to heal, to transform, to build futures. Now you both have the chance to prove her right." Outside, and the sun began to set, bathing the attic in golden light. William pictured the empty land transformed into Mary's dream, a place filled with laughter, stories, and possibilities. And in the center of it all, a little girl in a white coat carrying on the legacy of love that began on a rainy night. The story garden was about to come to life. The waiting area at the social services office was cold and impersonal. William straightened his tie for the 10th time, feeling the weight of the documents in his briefcase. Through a glass window down the corridor, he could see Emma sitting in a small playroom, absorbed in a book. The night gardener, of course. "Mr. Anderson," called the social worker, a middle-aged woman with a serious expression. "Please come in." Mrs. Peters, according to the nameplate on her desk, examined William's documents meticulously. Her face remained impassive as she reviewed his request for guardianship, his financial records, the recommendation letters. "Mr. Anderson," she began, folding her hands on the desk. "I understand your emotional connection to this case, but I need to be clear. There are serious concerns about this guardianship request." William felt his heart tighten. What kind of concerns? "To start with, your age. You're 72, and Emma is only 6. Statistics show that—" "Statistics don't reflect love," William interrupted softly, "nor do they reflect the power of promises made to the heart." Mrs. Peters sighed. "Mr. Anderson, our job is to ensure the child's best interests. Emma needs stability, someone who can care for her for many years, someone with the energy to keep up with a young child." "Like Mary did?" William asked. "She was around my age when she started caring for Emma." "That was different. She was a volunteer, not a legal guardian." William reopened his briefcase, pulling out more documents. "I brought something else for you to see." They were Mary's project records, plans, documents, proof of the financial fund for Emma and for the story garden. "Mary left more than just dreams," William explained. "She left a structured legacy, a future planned not just for Emma, but for dozens of other children." The social worker examined the documents with growing interest, though doubt still lingered on her face. "It's impressive, but it doesn't change the fact that—" She was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Emma had slipped out of the playroom and now stood in the doorway, her little face set with determination. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "May I speak? Mrs. Peters hesitated, then nodded. Emma entered, clutching the night gardener and some loose sheets of paper. "Aunt Mary taught me that when something is important, we should write about it," Emma declared, placing her papers on the desk. "So I did." It was a letter, written in a child's careful handwriting. "Dear Miss Social Worker, I know William is old, but he makes the same cookies Aunt Mary did. He reads stories with the same funny voices. And when I have nightmares, he knows exactly how to hold me so the fear goes away. Aunt Mary said family isn't about age, it's about love, and William has as much love as she had. At Mrs. Helen's house, nobody reads stories. Nobody cares if I learn new words. Nobody understands why I keep old letters and a plaid blanket. But William does, because he also keeps Aunt Mary's memories. And together, we're going to grow her garden. I even have my special helper coat. Please let me stay with him. I promise I'll take care of him too, just like he takes care of me. With love, Emma." Mrs. Peters read the letter in silence, her professional facade finally showing signs of emotion. Emma wasn't finished. She opened The Night Gardener to a specific page. "Look," she pointed to a note Mary had scribbled in the margin. "Aunt Mary wrote, 'Some flowers need special gardeners. Emma is my rarest flower, and William will be the perfect gardener to help her grow.' William hadn't known about that note. His heart overflowed with love for Mary, for her foresight, even planning for this moment. "Mrs. Peters," he said softly, "I know I seem too old. I know the statistics aren't on my side. But Emma is not a statistic. She's a promise I made to Mary, a dream I intend to fulfill, a flower that needs the right garden to grow." Emma moved to his side, holding his hand. "See," she said to the social worker, "he even talks like Aunt Mary." Mrs. Peters studied them both for a long moment. Then she picked up a new form. "This won't be easy," she cautioned. "There will be regular supervision visits, constant evaluations, many questions." "Like any good garden," William replied, "it needs patience and constant care." "And love," Emma chimed in. "Aunt Mary always said that's the most important ingredient." The social worker began filling out the form. "We'll start with a temporary guardianship," she explained. 6 months for adaptation and evaluation." Emma squeezed William's hand, her eyes shining. He returned her grasp gently, feeling in that small gesture both the weight and the joy of the promise they were about to fulfill. "Mr. Anderson," Mrs. Peters addressed him again, "one last question. Why? Why take on such a big responsibility at this stage of your life?" William looked at Emma, who was now flipping through The Night Gardener as though she knew every page by heart. "Because," he answered, "some stories need to be continued. And this is a story of love that began long before me, but that I'm honored to help write in the chapters to come." Outside, the afternoon sun streamed in through the window, casting a pattern of light that resembled the garden model in the attic. Emma smiled, a smile that held all of Mary's hope, all of William's love, and all of the promise of a future they would build together. The battle wasn't won, but the first step had been taken. And as Mary always said in her letters, sometimes all a flower needs is the chance to grow in the right garden. 6 months can feel like an eternity or the blink of an eye, depending on how you live them. For William and Emma, they were 6 months of small daily miracles. The room that once was Mary's study was now transformed. Its walls, painted a soft sky blue, were lined with shelves full of books. The plaid blanket, the same one that brought them together on a cold night, rested on a new bed adorned with flowered cushions. On the windowsill, daisy pots thrived, carefully watered each morning by small hands. But the biggest transformation happened on the old vacant lot near the park. The story garden blossomed beyond Mary's wildest dreams. It began when Rose mentioned the project to her retirement group. In a matter of days, retired teachers, librarians, and storytellers started showing up, offering help. The garden Mary had imagined came to life thanks to dozens of experienced hands and generous hearts. "It's like having a bunch of grandparents all at once," Emma would say, dashing among the volunteers in her white special helper coat. The main building, painted in bright colors, now housed a children's library, much bigger than the old shelters. Murals on the walls depicted the tale of a special woman who started it all by reading to a little girl on a rainy night. On that special morning, the story garden was in a festive mood. Colorful balloons bobbed in the soft breeze, and a banner over the entrance read, "Happy birthday, Emma, 7 years." But before the party began, there was an important visit to make. The cemetery was silent and serene as William and Emma arrived, she carrying the night gardener and fresh daisies. The peach tree by Mary's grave was laden with blooms, as if it wanted to join the celebration. "Hi, Aunt Mary," Emma said softly, arranging the flowers in a vase. "Today's a special day. I brought you a present." William watched, moved, as Emma sat on the grass and opened the book. Her reading was now fluent, the words dancing on her tongue with the same grace Mary used to have. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a gardener who planted stories. A bright blue butterfly, as vivid as a piece of sky, fluttered down to rest on the open page." Emma paused, her eyes wide with wonder. "Look, William," she whispered. "It's Aunt Mary. She came to hear the story." William sat beside her, wrapping her in a gentle hug. The butterfly stayed, its wings moving softly as Emma continued reading. When the story ended, Emma had another surprise. From her backpack, she pulled out a new photo album. "We made this special album, Aunt Mary," she explained, "to show you how your garden has grown." The pages revealed the story garden in full bloom. Children laughing during story time, elderly volunteers guiding small groups in reading, birthday parties celebrated with books and tales. In every photo, Mary's spirit was present, in the children's smiles, in the volunteers' shining eyes, in the love filling every moment. Back home, Emma's birthday party was a celebration of stories. Every guest brought a book as a gift, and the senior volunteers took turns telling tales, their experienced voices bringing dragons, princesses, and adventurers to life. That night, after everyone had left, William and Emma settled into their new favorite tradition. Snuggled under the plaid blanket on the old rocking chair, they opened Mary's diary to the last page, a page they had never read before. "Would you like to read it for us, little one?" William asked softly. Emma nodded,